North Carolina, as expected, did not receive an NCAA at-large bid. They did not get it. Very few people thought they would get it once the ACC tournament, the end of the regular season, and the ACC tournament played out the way it did. Had they beaten Duke at the end of the regular season? Maybe. Had they beaten Virginia for the second time in 2 weeks at the ACC tournament? Maybe. Maybe not. But they lost to Virginia at the ACC tournament. They lost to Duke the week before. Then they declined a bid to the NIT, which is also not really a surprise. We were told by several people who cover the team that that's the way they were leaning. I knew going into the weekend that that's the way they were leaning. And I will just say, shame. Shame on them for doing that. That's a terrible, terrible decision for a lot of reasons. But before we get to the reasons why it's a bad, bad decision, and it I think reflects poorly on the basketball program, let me say this. Off the hop, I 100% understand how disappointing this season had to have been for every single person in that locker room. I am like, as a father, you can put yourself in the position of empathy for young men who are trying hard and competing and trying to find something that works as a team. You know that, like, I am not the person who denigrates the effort of the player at all. This is not about that. They gave everything they could as best they could this season. It didn't work out. It did not work out for them as a team. I understand and feel for them. I feel for Armando Bacot, who wore his emotions on his sleeve all year long. All year. I feel for him. He was the most visible representative of that team. Leaky Black probably right behind him, right? So I feel terrible that the season unraveled. I feel bad for all of them, but those two guys were like the public faces of the players. So I feel bad for them. Preseason number one. Even though they should never have been preseason number one. As I said all year long, I get why they were. But if you really thought that this was the same team, that's a you problem. It's not a them problem. I've always said about this team, the biggest problem was the assumption of this team that just because you return 80% of your starting lineup from a team that had a 15-point lead in the national championship game at halftime, just because of that doesn't mean it's the same team. Even when you return all 5 starters, it's not the same team. Are we new? You can't be new here. By the way, I love the music bed here, Dennis.
You're
welcome. Big fan of the music bed here. So I get they were preseason number one. They shouldn't have been. They couldn't get over the hump all year long. We found out. Look, they almost beat Alabama. They needed 4 overtimes to lose that game, right? They were this close. If you win that game, heck, you're probably in the field if you win that game, right? They beat Alabama. End of discussion. They were lucky to beat Ohio State. They were gifted that win over Ohio State. At the time, that was their best win. Their only good one. They were gifted that by Ohio State. Doesn't matter. Nobody cares. They won it, right? Had to run a great out-of-bounds play, sideline out-of-bounds play, just to win that game. So that was the feather in their cap. But ultimately, Ohio State wasn't an NCAA tournament team. I'm not even sure they made the postseason. So they couldn't get over the hump. And the national media, who picked them number one overall to begin with, used them as a pincushion all year long. It was as though the national media reveled in North Carolina's disappointment. I mean, just the way I look at it. right? Everybody's like, can't be preseason number one. Be the first preseason number one to miss. Like, yeah, I get it. They did not name themselves preseason number one. I think it's fair to point out. And last year was, as I said from the beginning of this season, a product of the Brady Manic. Boy, that would be great if I got this right. We'll start that over. Edit this out, Dennis. Last year was, as I said from the beginning, a product of the Brady Manic experience. Brady Manic's emergence as not only their best shooter, but their best competitor, the pulse of that team, and the reason they beat Duke at Cameron, and the reason they went to the Final Four, because Manic became a killer. They got some bursts from Caleb Love, and Armando Bacot continued to play at an incredibly high level, but the reason why the Tar Heels became great was because Brady Manic became great. And everybody that watched the team understood it. And a lot of those same people thought that when they just replaced Brady Manic with Pete Nance, that it would be more of the same. And that was unfair to Pete Nance too, by the way. Manic was great. But the team was always more about the first 4 months than the last 4 weeks. Always. The Manic experience made them different. And when Brady Manic left, the team that played the first 4 months is the team that played this year. I don't know how we get around that. It was the same team that played the first 4 months that we weren't sure would make the NCAA tournament. We thought they'd be in, but they just kind of squeaked in. As it was, they were an 8 seed anyway. And now they're above the NIT. How else do we process it? How else do we look at what they decided to do and say that we're North Carolina, we don't have to go to your NIT? Okay. That's a choice that was made. I think it's the wrong choice. And I wanted more leadership out of that program. As I'm told, it was a collaborative decision between the coaches and the players. And I am here to say, it ain't a collaborative decision. It's the decision of the program, which is led by the head coach. And my disappointment is Hubert Davis allowing the players who don't want to play. And I get it. I don't blame Armando Bacot and RJ Davis and Leaky Black and Caleb Love for being lost in their fields because of the way the season went and not want to play. I understand it. But it ain't their decision because it's not their program. It's the University of North Carolina program. And last I checked, there are 7 other players who could play. Puff Johnson, DeMarco Dunn, Jalen Washington, Tyler Nichols, Seth Trimble, Justin McCoy, Dontrez Styles. They could all play. I know they didn't this year for the most part. We had very few bench minutes, which is a failure, honestly, of the program this year. Hubert Davis makes that decision, who plays. And I'm not in practice, so maybe all these guys stunk. I have no idea. I don't think that's the case. Because the people we talk to on a regular basis were like, why isn't this guy playing? Why isn't this guy playing? And then when certain guys play, they're like, hey, wait, he played pretty well. Where was that? Wouldn't be the first time we criticized the coach for not playing players. It's funny because Roy Williams used to operate under the assumption that, oh, do you have a scholarship here? You're going to play. Remember, on a 2009 national championship team, we carved out 4 minutes a game for Tyler Zeller. There was no reason for Tyler Zeller to play behind all the front court players that the Tar Heels had at the time. No reason, but scholarship, he's a prospect. We're going to give him 4 minutes a game. Give him 2 minutes a half. We didn't really get that. Not on a regular basis, not on a consistent basis for player. But wouldn't the NIT be a perfect place for those guys to get playing time?
Yeah.
So, my disappointment is in the lack of leadership, I think, that is being shown right now. And this is not a player decision. I would respect the hell out of Baycott's decision if he said, look, these guys want to play. That's fine. I don't want to. Opt out. Opt out. But these guys should have the option, not the option, they have the responsibility to play. And Hubert, it's not a team. It's not 4 guys or 5 guys. It's a program. And your program should be in the NIT. That is my disappointment.